The 9.6 notes page is covering how to find the area of irregular figures. Irregular figures can also be known as composite figures. Okay, so composite figures is when you have shapes that are composed of other shapes, a whole bunch of shapes put together. So up top here you can see that we're going to be looking at a composite figure or an irregular shape that's inside graph paper, and then on the bottom you're going to see that we're going to be looking at, you know, when we have two shapes composed together. So we'll learn how to look at both of those. When it's on graph paper or grid paper, you can see how they estimate. They estimate its area by counting the whole squares and the parts of squares. Okay, so their first strategy is I'm going to count up all of the whole squares. So there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's where they got the 10. Combining the parts are those darkened areas. Okay, so they're saying, well, this is half and that's half, so that's 1. Looking at section 2, they're saying that this one here is about a half, and this one is about a half on section 3. So section 2 is 1 1/2 because you have a half and you have a 1. In section 3, the same thing, you have a 1 and you have the half. So they're taking those parts and making those halves. So then they come over here and they add everything together. Their whole and then their sections that they found, getting an estimated area of 14 square units. Okay, I want to emphasize that it's an estimate because sometimes we estimate differently. So if someone got a slightly different answer, it wouldn't necessarily be wrong, they just estimated differently. Let's look at the number 1, estimate the area of the composite figure. They've kind of shaded it in nicely for us, so I can go through and I can count how many whole squares. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. I'm counting 9 whole squares. Section 1, they have highlighted here for us. Section 1, I would call that 1 1/2. So I'm going to put 1 1/2. And you can see they're using the approximation symbol. Number 2, that's cut right in half. So they're saying section 2 is exactly half. Section 3 is 2 halves put together, so section 3 is 1. So to find the area of the entire irregular figure, I'm going to take 9 plus 1 1/2 plus a half plus 1. I'm going to add all of those together and get 12 square units. The reason we're squaring our units is kind of drawn for us here. The area is the inside of our shape, right? So how many squares does it take to make our irregular figure? Now let's look at our composite figures down below. Their advice here is good advice to follow. Okay, so let's highlight this. You can break a composite figure into shapes that you know. Okay, then use those shapes to find the area. So if I'm looking at this L shape, I can see I have a big rectangle and a little rectangle. So I broke it up into 2 shapes that I could actually find the exact area of. And then we add them together similar to what we did above. So I'm going to look here at number 2, and I have the composite figure made down here. And when I look at that, I see a rectangle, and I also see a triangle. Now the tricky thing with composite figures is knowing your dimensions. Okay, when I look at this rectangle, Some people might be tempted to use the 6. Okay, but is the 6 the entire base of my rectangle? No, because it only goes there. So 6 is actually going to be used with the triangle. So the rectangle is 8 by 4. Over here they have it organized for us. So the area of the rectangle is 32. Now, looking at our triangle, again, I have to focus on making sure I'm using the right dimensions. So the triangle is half the base times the height. A lot of people forget that half. So the base is 6, so I'm going to take half of 6, and I'm going to times it by the height. So, depending on how you like to solve these, I'm going to take half of 6 and get 3, and then 3 times 6, or 3 times 2 is 6. So the triangle is 6 feet squared. To find the area of the entire composite figure, or irregular figure, I just add up my two shapes. So the area of my figure is 38 feet squared.